Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles and cousins, of course, and nanas and papas, or if you prefer, grandmothers and grandfathers, and baseball fans everywhere. Hello and welcome to this edition of the Valley Baseball League podcast. My name is Graham Knight, and on behalf of the Valley Baseball League and the teams in this league, it is my pleasure to welcome you here tonight to a place we call the Analytic Zone. Yeah. I know that it should read something along the lines of this. It's in the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fear and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of the imagination. It is the area which we call the Twilight Zone. You know, I've taken a few liberties. Personally, I think it sounds a lot better like this. It's in the middle ground between home plate and home plate, between the math of 6 plus 4 plus 3 equals 2, and the superstition that has players everywhere not changing their underwear for the entire season. And it lies between the windup and the summit of his accomplishments. This is the dimension of the analytic, a place we call the Analytic Zone. It's my pleasure to welcome you all here. We have the distinct honor to be joined today by, guess who? John Leonard and, if I press the right button, Joe Harmon. Hey, gentlemen.
Hi.
All right. So, John, we've had you on a couple of times now. It's taken us like 3, 4, maybe 5 podcasts to get down to the all-decade team hitters. Last time we were talking pitchers. Joe, why don't you catch us up on where we were with pitchers, and then let's get into who was good at the plate.
Well, we had a great conversation about the all-decade team pitchers. John gave us some absolutely jaw-dropping stat lines on some of the top pitchers that came out of the VBL in the previous decade, and guys that didn't get drafted, even though that they were 0 point something ERA, 0 point something WHIPs, 17 saves over 22 innings, amazing stuff. So we had a long conversation about why that doesn't necessarily translate into a draft pick for some of these guys. Really great conversation, and hopefully we'll be able to follow that up with some insight from some major league scouts if we can get one of those guys to share some thoughts with us. So stay tuned for more updates on that. But catching or pitching, the conversation about pitching naturally leads to a conversation about catchers. So John, what do you say we pick up the conversation around the all-decade team from the 2010s and look at who you've got selected as catchers?
Sure. The first team catcher is Brad Zebedee from Strasburg in 2011. So he was early on. He went to Presbyterian, was his college. He was MVP of the league that year, and but did not go on to pro ball. The second team catcher is Wes Clark. And those of you who followed the Waynesboro team just last year know all about Wes. He was at South Carolina, was fantastic for the Generals last year, and he was the second team. So it's those two guys, one from the beginning of the decade and one from the end.
All right, let's talk about Zebedee, the top team, the top catcher from the decade. What's his stat line?
Let's see. His average was 420.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, I think you heard me right. Yeah, he hit 420. His on base was 490, which means it was just under half the time. Oh. And he slugged 638. Whoa. And this was in 174 at bats. So he had
he hit 3 times, 4 times a game.
Yes. Yes. He had
every game
19 doubles, 2 triples, 5 home runs, and then of course he walked more times and he struck out as well, 22-20.
Wow, amazing! And this guy didn't get drafted, isn't playing ball.
No, he did not. And in fact, when I talked
mind-numbing.
I know the Neals, Jay Neal and Matt and Parker Neal, they still sometimes marvel at why he never got a chance. Especially as I believe he was a left-handed hitting catcher as well. Like they're kind of rare. And if he has that good of a stick, why did he not get a shot?
Right.
But again, that's a question for a scout.
Yeah, you're right. That is a really good question for a scout. And I want to ask that question. So, do you have there a number of games he played? Did he play 42 games that year?
I do not have his games, but
Okay.
with 174 at bats, it had to have been almost
Figure,
all of
yeah.
them. Yeah.
And go ahead.
I was just going to say the stats for the second team, Wes
Yeah.
Clark.
Yeah, Wes
He
Clark,
hit,
great season last year.
yeah, he hit 364 average. His on base was an exact 500, so he got on base half the
Wow.
time. And his slugging was 645, which was actually a little higher than Zebedee''s. He had 121 at bats, so he had 14 doubles, a triple, 6 home runs. But this is what really jumped out for me is that he walked 27 times and only struck out 15 times
That's
in that
incredible.
entire season.
That is some discipline at the plate, man.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And to have that power and then also not to strike out, that's also just tremendous. So he was excellent also.
Yeah, and so he played with Waynesboro in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Where did Waynesboro end up in the standings, and how? Remind us.
They went 31-11. They won the South,
Right.
and actually set a franchise record for winning percentage. I don't think it was the most wins that they've ever had, but the franchise record for winning percentage. And Wes was a huge part of that, especially early in the year, in the summer. Really, if Coach Zach Cole wasn't getting something from Wes, they weren't winning the game.
Hmm.
Now they improved a ton over the summer, so that was true in the beginning, but not the end.
Yeah, and you can check out our conversation with
Mm-hmm.
Zach Cole about that turnaround that Waynesboro had last year in one of our previous podcasts. Go on. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Well, hey, while we're on interrupting, let me just jump in. Not only can you hear the Zach Cole interview, but I also put up a game from June 25th, 2019, where Waynesboro played Woodstock. I won't spoil the ending for anybody, blowout, but they did come back from quite a deficit. And watching Wes play was really quite a treat. I mean, he just was kind of had a command at the plate that I found was, I mean, it was just a presence. He was fun to watch.
Yeah.
And sometimes there are guys that you see out on the field and you say that kid, he has a pro body, right?
Mm.
Like, and Wes Clark is one of those guys. You know, he's 6'2", 6'3", just chiseled. Yeah,
Well,
he's definitely got a shot at pro ball. Although he's just a sophomore at South Carolina this year, so he's not draft eligible yet. But I fully expect him to get drafted.
Yeah, we'll have to keep him on the radar, no doubt about it. Do we expect him back in the league here in 2021?
I would not expect that. When he finishes his junior year this next year, I think he'll get drafted and most likely go pro.
Yeah, well, it's a shame we won't see him again. Mm-hmm. Tell him we said hi when you talk to him.
Sure.
Hey, well, you know, this West Love Fest is, you know, well deserved, but he was not even the number one catcher in the decade. Zebedee. What was Zebedee's first name again?
Brad.
Brad Zebedee was your first team catcher, and we had talked about his absolutely jaw-dropping numbers, 426. So, what love do we have to throw his way since we've been going on about Wes?
Well, I did not witness much of that summer. That was the summer that we actually moved back to East Africa. But I know that the Neals have raved about his hitting potential, and said that he was a really good kid as well. And that's about all I've got on Zebedee. And obviously, they're disappointed he didn't get a chance to play pro ball. But that was the first summer of the Express. And so the Express kind of exploded onto the scene with this high performing catcher.
Yeah, and where were they on the standings that year?
I can tell you.
Yeah, and I like to ask that. And sorry if I put you on the spot there, John, but the reason I ask is because nobody plays in a bubble. The games don't happen in a bubble, and these guys, their stat lines are affected by where they are in the lineup. You know, what the team that they're playing. You know, who's around them as far as the caliber of the hitter in front of them and behind them, and so.
Well, and the
level of competition from the other teams, and so it's all part of it, right? part of that
Sure.
conversation of what makes them successful in a particular season.
It is, and baseball. It's unless you're Barry Bonds, it's hard to carry a team all by yourself.
Yeah.
But Strasburg was not very good in their first 2 seasons, and I think that the Neals would probably admit that they were still figuring things out at that point. The 2011 Express went 15-29 with a winning percentage of .341, so they came in last in the North that year.
Yeah.
But again, that was not a consideration for the all-decade teams.
So, Mr. Zebedee, he did not have a lot of protection in the lineup, yet he was still able to hit 426.
Yeah, 420. Yeah,
420. Right.
Well, high enough.
All right. So, speaking of big hitters, let's talk first base.
Okay. And like I mentioned the last time we talked, first base was probably the most hotly contested position.
Yeah. Why?
There just were so many high performers at first base. In fact, there was a league MVP that didn't make the first or second team, and that was Zach Sterry, played in Waynesboro in 2016, and J.D. Mundy in Covington did not make one of them either. Those were the cuts. But the first team was Jimmy Yezzo from Winchester in 2012. Jimmy was from Delaware. Went on to play pro ball, made it to A ball before he was released, and then played a couple of years of independent ball, actually. And the second team at first base is Gunnar Mcneil, who played in Stanton in 2014. He was league MVP that year for the Braves.
Well, with a name like Gunnar, you almost have to go pro. I mean, I don't. I wonder if you're a scout, you're sitting there, you got your gun, you got your notepad, you got your stopwatch. Name Gunnar, definitely in. Anyway, name J.D. Mundy. I don't know. It sounds so good on a baseball card. I mean, I don't know if that's fair, but anyway, sorry, I had to
it's not, because the irony is that Gunnar Mcneill did not play pro ball.
Huh.
He was at Kentucky for his senior year and did not get a chance to play very much because they had a first-round pick at first base. His name is Evan White, who went on to be a really high draft pick. And Gunnar didn't get that chance. I know I think he had at least one tryout with a club, but was not picked up as a free agent. So if you want to talk about stat lines, Yezzo's stat line in 2012, which was the year of the hitter, of course, but just
Let's
insane.
All right.
I mean, he hit 362.
362.
His on base was 401, and his slugging was 679. He had 21 doubles and 16 home runs that summer. Wow. So it's 37 extra base hits. He scored 51 runs, and he drove in 62. He had 62 RBIs in this short season.
How many at-bats?
I don't have the at-bats in front of me.
Well, let's say, he had 150 or 140 or so, and that's 62 RBIs. Did I hear that right? 62 RBIs?
62 RBIs. Now, he was helped, of course, by hitters around him, which you have to have if you're going to have a lot of RBIs and runs scored. Leo Rojas at second base on that team was amazing. He scored the most runs in one Valley League season than anyone since 2004 in that season, 2012. And then the catcher was Joseph Odom, who I haven't mentioned before, but he was probably the catcher that was closest to making one of these teams behind Zebedee and Clark at that position. So
hey, well, John, you mentioned 2012 a bunch. Let's talk about that a little bit. 2012 is the year of the hitter in the Valley Baseball League stat book. What's the insight around that? Why?
It was the ball.
Is
what was decided on that one. I think the ball was actually tested, and they found that it was maybe tighter wound or anyway, it flew a lot farther than the balls that were used in 2011 and then in 2013. So, and again, when I had to pick these guys, I kept in mind that 2012 was that kind of season. But I kind of looked at it a little bit as I wish we would look at the steroid era in Major League Baseball. The numbers were inflated across the board, but there were still some guys that were the best.
Yeah.
Even with the shenanigans going on back in those days. Anytime you get a chance to use the word shenanigans, I think you should use it.
We got plenty of shenanigans happening here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, John. So that's what other insights do we have around first baseman? Any other honorable mentions that you want to just jump out there, and then we can recap?
Not besides the Mundy and Sterry. Those were probably the closest to those to make the first and second team.
All right. So recap for us. Let's start with the catchers. Who was the first team catcher?
Brad Zebedee.
Brad Zebedee. He played for
Strasburg in 2011.
In 2011. And the second team catcher was
Wes Clark
from Waynesboro, 2019.
2019, yes.
All right. And then your first team first baseman?
Is Jimmy Yezzo from Winchester, 2012. And
Royals showed up finally.
Second team was Gunnar Mcneil from Stanton, 2014 league MVP.
All right, baseball fans, I really hate to interrupt this conversation, but there are 3 important pieces of business I have to get to. Have to. First, please subscribe, like, and share us. Really super important to get the word out about the Valley Baseball League. We're in the top 10 of all summer collegiate base wood bat leagues. We're in the National Alliance of Collegiate Summer Wood Bat Leagues. It's an alliance of 12 leagues, including the Cape Cod League. We're one of only a few leagues sponsored by Major League Baseball. We want to let people know what's happening in the Valley, what's good about this organization, and why they want to be involved. So help us do that. Also, if you've got any questions, comments, thoughts, please share them. We'd love to hear from you. vbleague@isomermedia.com. That's vbleague@isomermedia.com. And I would be absolutely remiss if I did not pay tribute to our great sponsor, Grace Burrows. The two last years, I'm not sure if that's a sentence, but it sounds kind of cool. The 2 last years of Valley Baseball League live streams would not have happened if it were not for the contributions and support of Grace Burrows. Here's her latest book. If you haven't gotten it, support her by reaching out and getting it. It's a great read. She's a great writer. I'm happy to say I was one of her first readers. Anyway, take a look. All right, now it's time to get back to a place we call the analytics zone.
All right, John. Well, let's continue around the diamond in position number order. We did the pitchers, catchers, talked first base. Now let's talk second baseman. Who's on your second base roster? We'll hit the third baseman and shortstop here before we finish up this episode. Who's on second base?
First team second base is Michael Wilansky from Charlottesville, 2017.
Oh yeah,
another MVP from Division III Worcester. So there's another kid that came from D3 and lit up the league, and I love it.
Yeah.
Second team second baseman is Austin Embler, and he was in Harrisonburg in 2018 out of UNC Greensboro.
And how are those guys doing now?
Well, Wilansky was drafted.
Oh, good.
And
Out of D3.
Yep, and he is in pro ball right now. Well, I guess not right now, but is still active with the Houston Astros organization.
All right. He's on somebody's roster somewhere.
Yes, and Austin Embler was not drafted. He has not played pro ball.
Okay. You got a stat line for those guys?
Yeah, Wolanski hit 432.
I'm sorry, what?
I know all of these numbers are just crazy.
What year was he? Was he
2017?
Okay, he wasn't even 2012 when he hit 430.
Right. Oh, he was. I saw him play maybe a dozen times that year, and he just hit line drives every time up. It was amazing. He hit 432, 489, 677 in 155 at bats.
Wow.
18 doubles, 4 triples, 4 home runs, 20 walks against 15 strikeouts. Stole 11 bases. Was very, very good. Embler hit 388, 479, 621 in 116 at bats.
Wow, 380. Mine again, jaw-dropping numbers from these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, they were very good, both of them.
Let's go ahead. Third base.
Third base, first team is Michael Garza, who played in Woodstock in 2010. And the second teamer is Carter Farris, who played in Strasburg in 2016. Garza was out of Georgetown. Make sure I have that right. Out of Georgetown, he was drafted in the 2012 draft, made it to high A, is no longer in pro ball. And then Carter Farris was at UAB, but was not drafted and has not played pro ball yet.
How are their stats?
Garza hit 388, 403, 565, had 13 doubles, 4 triples, 3 home runs, 23 stolen bases. Michael had a couple brothers that have played in the Valley League as well, also for Woodstock. And weirdly, I'm going to a physiotherapist for some back troubles right now. And turns out that my PT is actually from Woodstock, and his family kept Valley League players. Yeah. And Michael Garza was one of the guys that stayed in their home over the summer. It's a small world, I guess.
Yeah. Love the Valley.
Yeah. And then Carter Farris hit 342, 440, 535 in 155 at bats, 13 doubles, 5 home runs. And they won the title that year in 2016. Strasburg did.
Yeah. All right. What do you got for us at shortstop?
Shortstop. First team is Corey Spangenberg, Winchester 2010. He is the only major league player on the all-decade first team. Team. There is one on the second team also. Spangenberg hit 399, 463, 527, 15 doubles, 3 home runs, 21 stolen bases. He was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And the second team is Bradley Jones from Charlestown 2015. He hit 333, 380, 590, 12 doubles, 6 home runs. Did not win the home run derby at the All-Star game, but put on the best show.
Oh, yeah.
In the semifinal round, his father pitched to him, and Bradley just hit bomb after bomb after bomb, and the crowd was loving it. He ended up getting out-homered in the final round, but he really put on a show. Bradley was drafted. Let's see. He was drafted out of the College of Charleston in 2016 by the Blue Jays and made it to high A in the Florida State League in Dunedin, and then decided that he was kind of done with pro ball and he retired.
Good for him.
Yep. Decided he wanted to move on with his life and did.
Excellent. Wonder what he's doing now.
I think a lot of hunting probably right now.
Do you have a bio where his hometown is?
Yes. He's from Travelers Rest, South Carolina.
Okay. All right. Well, good for him.
That's where Bradley is from.
Send him an email, see what he's up to.
Yeah. Shout out to all the people who knew that without having to look it up.
Well, you only have, what is it, 2014 years of baseball stats in your brain, which is always fun to pick. All right, Joe, why don't we wrap this up for today?
Yeah.
Any final thoughts, gentlemen, on the infield from the all-decade team?
This has been amazing. Listening to the names and the stats and hearing a little bit about their progression and where they are now. A wide range of results. Essentially, some have been drafted, some have not been, some are playing, some have left the game. So Spangenberger, I'm sorry, say his name for me.
Spangenberg,
is in the majors. So a lot of stories there and a lot more detail to wonder about. So, but I can't say thanks enough to John for loving all this so much and putting it together all on your own, and just for the love of the game, and then for taking your time to share it with us here on these podcasts. It's phenomenal.
Well, you're welcome. This has been a lot of fun, and you're right. This was totally me. So if anybody has any beef with what happened, it's my fault. So.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. Hey, but let's give a shout out to John. So John's published 2 annuals on the Valley League. John, correct me if I'm wrong. We have the 2019 annual, which is for sale right now on All Things Valley. You can also find it on the Valley League baseball website. And you also did one, I think, 2015, correct? Wasn't that your other one?
That's right. Yeah, I did the 2015 sort of as a just to kind of see if I could do it in my spare time, and then 2019 was a project for the entire summer.
And I've been reading the 2019 annual. Great read, by the way. It's not at all it's not just a list of box scores. It's fun.
I'm glad you're enjoying it. Yeah. That's great.
All right, if you want to enjoy it, it's $10, 85,000 words. Sorry. Yeah, John, 85,000 words.
260 pages or something like that.
260 pages, yeah, $10. I'll let you figure out what the average cost per page is for all you baseball hitting statisticians out there.
Hey, we're going to come back and talk about the outfield in our next show with John.
Yeah, we'll be back to talk about the outfield and a whole bunch of other stuff. But until then, I want to thank everybody for joining us. My name is Graham Knight, and on behalf of the Valley Baseball League and all the teams in this league, we want to wish you all perfect health and wish you all a speedy return to the baseball diamond. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, right here on the Valley Baseball League YouTube channel. Thanks again for watching. Good night.